Hi everyone. Today we saw markets gap lower and then we kind of consolidated in here around the level just below the trend. And then look at this candle here at the 11 o'clock. Pushed right to the 21 EMA, a little bit of rally in the session, and then 3 subsequent candles. And then after hours, you're getting a little bit of a rally here towards that 55 EMA. So 584.47 is that level. But let's take a look at some of the charts and see if we can find some direction for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So first I wanted to highlight that there is some geopolitics affecting AI chips right now. So the US is tightening its grip on AI chip flows, and of course this is going to negatively impact companies like NVIDIA, which is what we saw today. This came out this morning, and NVIDIA did sell off on the back of this news. To be clear, this is something the Biden administration is doing, and I do expect Trump to continue to maintain this policy. He's arguably more difficult for China on a geopolitical basis. I think Biden was probably more friendly to China, but we'll see. Definitely interesting. And just understand this is a headwind for the major companies, but specifically NVIDIA, in my opinion. Then moving over to the fear and greed index, we stepped up to a 27 from a 26 today. Still extreme fear on all of the major indicators, and we actually saw breadth roll down a little bit. Not super great there. Strength continues to crater. This has been a colossal run to the downside. I don't know if I've ever seen it move straight down this far for this long, but definitely interesting. Put call ratio also elevating here today into extreme fear, so nearly extreme fear across the board. Volatility did level out, still sitting at neutral there. Safe haven demand, extreme fear, and junk bonds still hanging in there in regular greed. Then moving over to the economic calendar, really nothing here for the Monday. Looking at Tuesday, we have that PPI coming in the morning at 8:30. That's pretty much it for the day. CPI, all of that stuff for Wednesday, that's going to be the big one of the week. So if you hold anything into the close tomorrow, just understand it can be affected by this pre-market data on the Wednesday. And then something that I forgot to mention on the weekend video, we do start earnings season. It feels like forever since we've really talked about earnings, but earnings season kicks off this week. The banks are starting on Wednesday, some of the healthcare and more banks on Thursday. And then we finish up here with SLB, a little bit more financials on the Friday. Moving over to Max Pain with a little bit of a rally that we saw here to 582, 583. We were pretty much on that Max Pain number for the end of the week. So expecting a little bit of sideways choppy action. We talked about how Max Pain kind of points in that direction. Tons of options obviously this week with the third week options expiration, and put call ratio relatively high there at 2.6, higher than we've seen over the last few weeks. So a little bit of rally makes sense. 585, 590, but no higher than 600 in my opinion. And then looking at the charts here, you can see we dipped down, hit these trends. We overthrew those to the downside. Didn't quite touch the level that I expected. 574.71 was the level. Momentum is still bearish, RSI is still bearish, but we ended up closing positive 90 cents on the day. And then after hours, we're seeing a really solid bump of about $2 in the after hours. So pretty solid move on the day after the gap down. So there's still some buyers in here. I wouldn't get too excited quite yet. We're still looking for the gap fill back to the 5 November, which the closing price there was 574.77. The low of today was 575.35. So missed that gap fill by about 50 cents. I still think it's going to happen, even with the rally that we're seeing. My guess is that that will get sold off at some point. We're just a little extended off of these EMAs to the upside. Your 9 EMA, which would be the short-term target for me, is sitting at 587.36, which from the after-hours price action means maybe about another 0.5%, maybe 0.75% to touch that area. In terms of trends, we're starting to get those crosses, the 9s below the 21, VWAP closing below the 55, and now we just need the 21 to close below the 55, and then these will be stacked here to the upside. Not a good indicator for potential bullishness in the short term. And then looking at that hourly chart here, you can see almost touched the level, came up a little bit short. Really wanted to see that gap fill, didn't quite get there. And then you can see the rally into the after hours that we talked about. Really strong actually, continues to go here after hours. 55 EMA on the hourly chart is going to be that 584.50 area. And then the next level to the upside, 585.91. which was the low of this consolidation in here. Mark some key levels in here, maybe a little bit below it, 584.50. We'll see if we can get into those areas, and if we can get through them potentially. My guess is probably not, but in the short term, there is a little bit of a rally happening. Moving over to the Tasty charts here for the SPY, you can see we hit that lowest ATR band, overthrew it pretty substantially, got through this level here. We touched this zone on the Friday session, but not all the way down to the wick, so we overthrew that wick, and then we got some buying action. Again, looking very good in the after hours, almost to that 21 EMA here on the 4 hour. Still bearish conditions. Your trailing stop is still at 587.55. Didn't really move down after we got the gap down. So first candle, gap down on the trailing stop, and that's where we are right now, which takes you right to this consolidation before the move down on Friday. Then moving over to the NASDAQ here, you can see same structure that we've been watching, downward trending action. We hit that lowest trend line in the early part of the session, touched the trend, and then rallied pretty much straight higher from there. We broke the 503.50 level after gapping below it. And again, in the after hours, huge move there, 508.76, putting you back into positive territory from the Friday session, almost up to that 509.74 area. Again, is it going to be long lasting? I would argue probably not. This structure has held up really, really well. You got the midpoint of this trend going to be here at 508.50, which is just a little bit below where we are right now. So if we get a rejection from there, continuation back to the downside, that's going to take you into that 498.44 area potentially. But for right now, we did show a little bit of bounce and a little bit of strength off of that lower trend line. And last time we did that, we did rally back up to the upper trend, which in the short term could give you a potential for a 1.5, 1 3/4 potential move into this zone. That would also give you a retest of this trend here, this long-term trend we've been watching. So then you would have the breakdown retest. If you retest continuation lower, then in my opinion, we're definitely going to be headed towards that 144 EMA down in the 489, 490 area. My level would be 492. And then moving over to the Tasty charts here for the NASDAQ, similar thesis to the SPY. Trailing stops did move down slightly. They're at 513.74. We would need to get above that and close to see a bullish condition. Wouldn't shock me if we did see it because we have been so choppy here. You can see bearish conditions back here early in the mid-December period. Bullish conditions again, back into bearish here. And we've been kind of oscillating back and forth. So it is slowly downtrending, but if we did get an eclipse of that zone, that would take you back to 513.74, or that could be your point of resistance. You reject from there and then head back to that lowest ATR band. The ATR bands in general are still very much trending down, so until we start to see that kind of curl to the upside, I would be patient, even with this kind of sideways choppy action. And then moving over here to the Russell and the Dow, doing similar things to everything else, gapping down, hitting those key levels, and then rallying through. Russell managed to stay positive just barely at 0.19 on the day, representing only 42 cents in movement, but again, in that after hours price action, about $1.25 higher, getting above the 218.13 level. It'll be interesting. Maybe we go back and fill this gap here. You have the trend as resistance, fill the gap back to the Wednesday. Technically, you still have a gap back here all the way to the Tuesday, the 7th potentially. Maybe you get that gap fill and then see the continuation lower. Either way, this still does not look good with the down move, bear flag down move, but we did anticipate that 200 being a potential zone of support, which in the short term it seems to be doing. Momentum, still not great. RSI, still not great. And then looking at the Dow, similarly, pretty good up move. Just missed my level by a few pennies. The low of the day was 418.51. My level was 418.38. So pretty close there. We got the gap fill back to that 5 November candle on the Friday, and since then we only went a little bit lower now and then rallied up again after hours, about $1 higher, not quite as much as the others. You still got your 9 EMA in there as resistance at 424.79. We'll see if that zone ends up being resistance or not. The other thing to highlight here is this structure is very much bearish, with the 9, VWAP, 21, and 55 EMAs all stacked on top of each other. Is the 144 going to hold? Maybe, but you do definitely have some overhead resistance at this point. And then for individual stocks, I just wanted to mention Nike here before we got into the bigger players. Nike had a good day, 1.25%. Obviously, this chart is not very good. It had been much higher. Nike was up in the 120s not that long ago, and before that, we were all the way up in the 170s. Now we're currently sitting in the $72 range, but this is a critical level. You can see here, consolidation, rally up, pushed into the 85 area, dipped higher low setup, pushed into the 90 area, and then I have a level there, 89.32. And then I added a level here at the low of this consolidation, which was 70.75 back here on the 5th of August, and now we're back into that range one more time. If this level holds, I think you could be looking at a potential for maybe a $13 run somewhere into here, taking you back to the highs from August timeframe. That's about 18% higher. And then if you get the rally through that area all the way back to this most recent high, which is about a 24% run from current price. So something to consider. You have a very tight stop, 70.75. If it breaks below there, absolutely out of this trade. But if it holds this zone in here and can continue to close above 70.75, you could be looking at a 15 to maybe 24% runner. So just something to consider in there on Nike. Then looking at the Mag 7, pretty much in line with markets, down 1/3%, basically $1 after hours, bouncing a couple of dollars. So we almost hit the 55 EMA, thought we would there at 306.93, didn't quite get there, and then retraced all of that move and the gap fill, and now we're currently sitting at 318 or so, just a little bit below 318, which is your 9 EMA. If you touch that level and reject, it's going to be bad, but right now this does look like a bit of a bottoming formation here at that 308.88 area, the same low that we saw from the 2 January area. So some buyers still in here. Might be sideways consolidation, like I said before, waiting for this 55 EMA to consolidate. Once it consolidates and you break below, then I think we're headed much, much lower into the 283 area. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, pretty much in line with the Mag 7, down 1% and 0.42% respectively. Apple continues this downtrend, hit the level 230.28. Once it touched that level, it got a little bit of a rally there. And then again, after hours, up about $1. Momentum still very bearish, RSI still very bearish, but current support, 230. If you come back, retest the level and hold, that might be an interesting buying opportunity. And then looking at Microsoft here, you can see it finally touched 413.36. That was the level. Touched that level early in the session, kind of similar to a lot of the charts here, coming in, touching a key level, bouncing from there, and then rallying up a little bit after hours. Momentum stepping back towards bullish. RSI holding a slightly higher low off of that trend line. So again, that's the level, 413.36. If you can stay above it, looking for a rally back up to the 429 area, or maybe the trend in here, 423.30 or so. Still have all the EMAs and SMAs to the upside, but we've been consolidating for a while here on Microsoft, and until this level truly breaks, we should assume that this is going to continue to sideways consolidate. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla had a great day, up a little bit over 2%. Again, 384.29 was the level. We touched it on the Friday, held it on a closing basis, touched it again here today, and then rallied up really strong from that area. Momentum stepping back to bullish. RSI still below the SMA, but turning up a little bit. So Tesla, again, closing above the trend, continues to hold that zone. If it can hold in here, and we get a continuation back above 414.50, that might be a little bit of a bullish indicator in here. You got the 21 as resistance there as well at 424.16, but strong day, strong relative strength, could be interesting. And then looking at NVIDIA was down about 2% on the news that we talked about earlier. After hours, still finding a bounce about $2. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish. 144 EMA is still the support. We haven't quite touched it yet. Early in the session, we hit my 130.35 level, and then still found buyers in that same zone. Very similar thesis to everything else. Moving over to Meta and Broadcom. Broadcom managed to stay positive on the day, 0.44. Meta was down 1.2%, touched the level again, 602.95. That's 3 days in a row touching that level, overthrowing it the last two, and then closing above it. And then after hours, again, we're seeing that rally into the close of the after hour session. Momentum still kind of flat, RSI right there at the SMA here for Meta. Definitely going to be interesting to see where that goes tomorrow. Broadcom still showing bearish momentum, bearish RSI. Still doesn't look super great with the breakdown retest of that trend. If it gets back above it tomorrow and holds, then you could be looking for a kind of continuation style move. But for now, I would be patient below the trend. Moving over to Staples and discretionary. Staples continues to hold this trend in here, just like we talked about on the Friday session. It went a little bit lower today, touched that trend, and then bounced. Stayed positive on the day. And then looking at discretionaries here on the daily, positive about 0.5%, 55 EMA acting as support. See if we can get above some of these trends in here, or probably just consolidate sideways like we talked about before. Moving over to breadth. Breadth actually had a really strong day. 20-day breadth jumping 48%, really strong, back above the 28 level there. After the big down day on the Friday, momentum back to bullish, RSI back to bullish. I do like this setup here, so good little move, at least for short-term trends. And then 50-day came down, just barely missed my level at 15.15. The low of day was 15.30. Very, very close, arguably a touch. But then we caught a big move to the upside, ended up positive 17%. Momentum back to bullish, RSI right in there as a retesting of the momentum SMA. Waiting to see if this can continue the rally through here. Either way for me, both of these look a little bit bullish, especially with that move here on the 20-day. Then moving over here to the dollar actually sold fairly well here today. It did go higher in the mid-session. You can see this big wick up here early around the 8 or 9 o'clock candles in here. Big wick consolidated, dropped lower here on the 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock candles. Now we're starting to see this sell off just below the 109.5 level. It's right at it right now. But it'll be interesting to see if this sells off a little bit more tomorrow. If the dollar starts to sell off after this really powerful run up to these trends, maybe we see equities gain a little bit of strength in the short term. Equities have held up really well considering the dollar move, but now you have a big wick rejection. If we can get a confirmation candle to the downside, that would be great. So something to watch for on the dollar. Maybe it shows a little bit of weakness here. Everything still says very, very bullish on the structure, but we do have some key trends as resistance. Then quick look at bonds. J&K did sell off, but very, very little. And then after hours, look at this move, 50 cents up after hours, back above this kind of consolidation range. Seems like there's some buyers, something crazy happening in this after hours price action. So looks very, very good. I would be definitely looking for some more moves in the pre-market tomorrow. We'll see. And then you got TLT basically unchanged, down 3 cents, still in this kind of same consolidation low. If it can get above 85.90, hold this zone in here and then look for some continuation, I think that would be a nice little move. So looking for this to hold. At this point, I do think that it will, especially with all these after hours moves that we're seeing. Then moving over to the VIX, again, through a big wick to a higher level there. 22.04 was the high, and then we closed negative on the day. So still below the 20 level. Momentum is still bullish. We'll see if that flattens out tomorrow. RSI is still a little bit bullish. This is still trending up. I would be patient. Maybe we come back, touch these levels, and then get a continuation back up to these trends here around the 22, 23 area. But for right now, it does show a little bit of rejection from 20, and I would expect at least one continuation candle here to the downside. And then looking at my positions here, I held that one put that I had through the session, made money on that. That worked out well, made $52 on that position, with the IWM only being up $42 during the session, so that was good. And then I actually rolled that out here to 216 for tomorrow for 88 cents. And that is, again, up about 70 cents after hours, so that's in good position. This will actually be in a profit if markets open right where they are right now. I took this position just at the end of the session, so I should be participating in that after hours move. And then similarly here with the Qs, as we were seeing that rally up, I took a position just after the market closed. I think the Qs were around 506, maybe 506.25, somewhere in there. Again, this should be in a profit. Net credit on that was $3.93. And if markets open up anywhere near where they are right now, $2 higher from that move, should be in a good position. So looking to collect about $4.75 in tomorrow's market. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the AI chip restrictions and Joe Biden's policy. Is that going to affect NVIDIA further, or is that already priced in? Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value on this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.